Mr. John Connolly?
Hey, how are you? John here.
Good, man. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Good. So, dude, you put this new album out, and you wait 5 years, and, I guess normally people who wait 5 years, they'll just say, all right, here's, 12, 13 songs. You guys come out and bang it out with a double album. You can't say you didn't, deliver on the 5-year plan.
No, making up for lost time for sure.
Now, was that something, you guys were truly working on, when time allowed in that 5-year span, or was it just something that gradually grew?
No, I mean, pretty much, it's it was never intentional for it to be 5 years. I mean, there were 7 records that were released in that 5-year period. 3 of them were Sevendust records. So, it eats up a lot of time. I mean, we did Black Out the Sun, came right after Human, and then we had an opportunity to do the Time Travelers record, the acoustic record, that kind of fit right in the hole, right in the middle of our touring schedule for Black Out the Sun. And then, Kill the Flaw. So it was pretty much, that 5 years was busy in the world of Sevendust. 2 Alter Bridge records. They did, Fortress and then the new record. And then there were 2 Tremonti records that were also up in the mix too. I mean, he kind of did the same thing I did, but he split the records up. He did Quarterize and Dust, all in one session, 20 songs. Okay. And E-Rock joked around. He was like, I'm never going to do, a project where I'm going to do, 20 songs all at the same time. And he did back-to-back. He went straight from Tremonti straight into Projected doing more, and he was like, oh, man. He was like, I'm never going to say that again. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those things where, you kind of pick and choose the moments. It's been a busy 5 years. I can definitely tell you that. A lot of people are like, oh, 5 years from project to project. I'm like, yeah. But none of us are quitting our day jobs anytime soon. And, it takes time. It's just kind of one of those things. It's like, the world of Sevendust has always been super, super busy.
Sure.
We're kind of like that shark. If we stop swimming, we die. So we just keep swimming. And you definitely have to figure out a way. Vinny, perfect example. Vinny was he tracked all of his bass while we were on a Canadian tour for Sevendust. We had a lot of days off, and we just looked at the schedule and said, look, you're more than welcome to come down and do it in Florida like you did last time, but if we've got the time, let's use it, and he was totally down with us. So we've got video of him and, all over Canada, Chicago, Ohio. I mean, he tracked bass everywhere we could possibly fit something in the schedule, Yeah. But that's kind of the nature of how this band, exists. We just find time and, in the holes and somehow or another we find a way to make it work.
Now, doing just that, finding time and all, when this thing first started coming to fruition, over 5 years ago, do you guys turn around to the other guys in Sevendust and say, look, in between our downtime or whatever, I got some other stuff I want to work on. I want to do a side project. Do you kind of give the guys a heads up?
Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of knows that it's on the radar. I think the first time is always the biggest shock. Well, what? You're going to do something else? I'm like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Nothing's changing. It's just, when you have time off, I guess sort of a workaholic. I'm kind of one of those guys where if I'm not doing something, I always feel like I should be doing something or I want to be doing something. Right. And, it's kind of one of those projects that has been on the radar for a long time. It was like, theoretically speaking, let's just see what happens if we just step outside the box for a minute, But when it came back up around this time, the guys kind of expected it, because we've been talking about it for a while. It was like, look, the first time was a test to see if we could even pull it off. And the second time is just kind of, reaffirming that we had a good time doing it the first time. And, let's go back in and see what happens, And we had no intention of having 21 songs be on the record. I mean, I'll be honest with you on that one. That was something that kind of happened. We just ended up with a double record, and it was like, oh, okay. this is cool, you know. I mean, I looked at Scott. I was like, I've never released a double record before. He was like, me either. I was like, this is uncharted territory, you know. So I think for all of us, we were all kind of in that really, really cool spot of, okay, how do you even approach this or handle this? I mean, Rat Pak was great. We figured they would be the ones who would kind of talk us off the ledge, you know, and be like, no, you know, do the smart thing, do, you know, 2 separate records. And it just made more sense to do it all as one, you know. It was like it was written together. They belong together. The window of opportunity, you know, it's always kind of narrow. I mean, Sevendust is going to have another record out in spring of 2018.
Okay.
And once we start touring that'll be a good, you know, year and a half worth of touring. And it's not to say that I won't try to, you know, put a couple projected shows here and there during that, but I just know in the world of Sevendust, once we start working, we're working. So
right. Once
you know,
that machine gets
never
rolling,
any guarantees with it. Oh yeah.
No, so you guys do get to do shows then?
We're going to try to. I mean, we're really, really going to try hard. I mean, my biggest hurdle is the fact that, you know, and I mean, talk about poor planning. I have one member who's in Alter Bridge and one member who's in Tremonti. And when Mark Tremonti is not doing Alter Bridge, he's doing Tremonti. And, you know, Tremonti's pretty established. I mean, they've done a good bit of, you know, road work over in the UK and over in Europe. And he intends on going pretty deep with it. My biggest opportunity is probably going to come from trying to marry those two together, trying to, you know, do something where we would actually tour with Tremonti so that we can kind of nail E-Rock down. I mean, you know, Scott will be easy because he'll be off, but I got to, you know, I'm even looking at, like, you know, January and February next year, and Mark's like, we're probably going to be in the studio, and I'm like, okay, well, all right, let me think about this, you know. But the cool thing is that this will be the first time that Sevendust will be almost on the same schedule as Tremonti as well. And,
cool.
I mean, we'd love to tour with Mark one way, shape, form, or another. So it might not even end up being a projected thing. It could be a, you know, Sevendust Tremonti tour. And then in the times off, maybe we do like a Tremonti, you know, projected thing. But that's the toughest thing is that I've got the push and pull between Eric and Scott, you know.
Does it get frustrating, though? I mean, here's this, I mean, especially now you guys put out this double album, you got all this new music, and, you know, being a musician myself, I know once you, like, you get them new songs done or done in the studio, you want to play them in front of people. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's the highlight.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's one of those things that I think we kind of accepted going in. We knew that it was going to be a bit of a challenge. But it's just kind of, you know, the nature of what it is. It's like, you know, everyone's like, is it a real band or is it still, do you know, call it a side project? I'm like, it's always going to be like a side project. There's always going to be something fun to do.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it would be very cool if we could actually take it out on tour at some point. You know, I mean, that's, you know, 21 songs. I'm like, holy crap. There's a lot of material. We, you know, I mean, you could slice and dice this thing up 16 different ways and have a million different sets, you know. I mean, between that and the first record, we've got, you know, over 30 songs now. So, yeah, I mean, it does get a little frustrating, but, you know, it's just kind of the nature of what it really is in the first place. So
does this mean you're going to come back, like, in another 5 years with a triple album and, like, top yourself?
Joke about that all the time, you know. Even the Sevendust guys are like, crap, man. What are we supposed to do on our next record? I'm like, well, we're going to make a record. He's like, well, you just did a double record, and that's real weird. I'm like, well, I guess it is, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to set the bar, you know. I mean, we've got our work cut out for us for sure. I mean, to try to top this one, you know, it's got to be either something that's huge or something that's just, you know, so undeniable. But yeah, I mean, when you sit down to do these things, you know, like I said, we never sat down and said, okay, we're going to release a double record, it's going to be a concept record, it's going to take, you know, 5 zillion years for it to be released and all that stuff. You know, you kind of go through the process and you end up where you end up. And
Right.
That's what we ended up, you know. I mean, I have no experience with this. You know, I've never done anything that was this big, this deep, this intensive. But it came naturally. That's the weird thing, is it just kind of happened. So we just kind of went with it. So I don't know. I mean, you know, maybe a triple record is in our future. I mean, I don't know anyone who's ever done that. So.
Come on, you know what? You can do it. Well, actually, I don't know if you know if you've ever heard of Bernie Torme. He used to played guitar in Ozzy after Randy died in the plane crash for a few days. He just put out this year a triple album. The first one's electric,
really?
Second is acoustic, and the third is live. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
well,
really cool.
Hey, there's a great idea. Do one of each and then do a live record. Yeah. I like it.
There you go. So now, how about also too? I mean, you've taken on the role of the front man, which is different for you. How is you doing that?
Oh, it's terrifying. You know, I mean, talk about being out of your comfort zone. You know, I mean, it's always a guess. It's always a question. I mean, everybody in Sevendust is, you know, a really, really strong songwriter. You know, we've always got our opinions, and you know, there's a zillion melodies and you know, lyrics coming out of everywhere. You never know where it's going to come from, who's going to contribute. So you're always kind of fighting for airspace in that band. You know, you push your way up to the front of the line, and you know, you make your pitch, and someone comes in and they crush it with something that's just 10 times cooler. It's just kind of the nature of how it works in that situation. But with this, it's totally different. It's you know, I'm sitting there just waiting for someone to crush my stuff, and everyone's just sitting around just kind of giving me the thumbs up, you know. So, I mean, for me, it's two parts. It's the writing process that's completely different, and then the fact that, you know, I'm still looking around going, where's Miles, where's LJ? Where are the singers in the equation here? Like, what's happening? No, I mean, it's a lot of fun to do, but yeah, I mean, it's something that's completely new, you know. I mean, you know, playing drums, playing guitar, writing songs, all that stuff is, you know, is kind of a natural part of what I do. But being the singer is still something I'm still getting my head wrapped around, you know. Because it's always been like, okay, you know, getting a melody across is one thing, but then liking the sound of your own voice is another thing, and that's just a big hurdle, you know. I mean, my whole life it's been like, you know, you always listen to yourself and you're like, I don't know, man. You know, I mean, it's like the sound of your own voice can kind of annoy you at times. So the fact that it doesn't for other people is a blessing. You know, because for me, I'm just super critical about it. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool experience for sure, because there's nothing, you know, more uncomfortable than putting yourself that far out of your comfort zone and then having it actually work. So I'm just crossing my fingers going, all right. At some point, someone's going to pull the curtain back and be like, all right, where's the wizard, you know?
Do you think that helps, too, when it comes to the actual songwriting part, to give it that difference from a Sevendust to a projected?
Absolutely. I think the biggest hurdle for me, though, is it's tough. I have to be very careful on how I approach the songwriting process in Sevendust, because it used to be that I would just go in, record vocals, you know, put a harmony on it, take it to the guys. The guys go, oh, that's cool, you know, great song, or I don't know, maybe we should explore a different, you know, thing on the chorus or whatever. But now, when I do it, sometimes I play it for the guys and they go, that sounds like projected, and I go, okay. So it's a tough spot to be in, because it's you can get very personal with it, you know. And in projected, it's like, okay, this is my personal approach. I'm not thinking about how LeJean would sing it. I'm thinking about how I would sing it. And you know, sometimes when you're in that process and you do it for a while, you realize, oh, crap, I just wrote another damn projected song by mistake. Because it's not very Sevendust. LeJean and myself have very different vocal styles, which is kind of, I guess, a really cool thing. I'm glad that we don't sound like each other. I mean, you know, singing backup behind him for the past 20 years has taught me quite a bit. But
sure,
we definitely have completely different styles. You know, I mean, we gravitate towards just totally different things. So it can be a blessing, and it can be a curse sometimes when you're going through the process. We're actually working on a new Sevendust record right now, and I'm having to sidestep that. You know, I'm like, all right, unplug. This is not projected. This is Sevendust. Focus. You know.
Does it also kind of like keep things like now that there's the side project of Projected, and there is the Sevendust machine that there is? Does it give you kind of like almost like a breath of fresh air now, where before you would, in that 20-year span, you're taking a break, where now you're really not taking a break. You're going back and forth between the two, and it's like, all right, well, now it's back onto the Sevendust, and I can do this thing, and I just did that, and now I can, like, be this person over here, and, where can kind of breathe some fresh energy into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they both, trust me, I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't taking or stealing or borrowing things that I've learned in Sevendust over to Projected. I mean, it's just kind of the natural course of how you go through it. It's like you learn the songwriting process. You learn what works, what doesn't work, structure, flow, all that stuff. And, it's cool to be able to step into this and go, okay, I can do this for a second, and then, step back over into the Sevendust world and do that for a second. Because like I said, the process is so different. I know they're super related. I'm not tuning the guitar to crazy keys, and I'm not playing things that don't come naturally. People ask me all the time,
Sure.
like, do you sit down and do you write differently with Projected than you do with Sevendust? And I don't, because I don't sit down to write at all. My process is very, very different. I went through a bit of writer's block about a decade ago, and I changed the process up totally, where I don't sit down, like I'm going to get off the phone in a few minutes, I'm going to go down, I'm going to write a power ballad. I never do that.
Right.
I literally walk into the room, I turn everything on, I pick the guitar up, and I start playing. That is it. I hit the record button, I record for about 40, 45 minutes against the beat, and I just play. There's no agenda. I don't know what I'm going to play. I don't know how fast it's going to be, what tempo it's going to be in. I just throw something up and just go. And then what I do is the next day I'll go back in and I'll sit down without a guitar and I'll just listen. Just listen to all the nonsense that I did. Out of 45 minutes, there's probably about 39 and a half minutes of just BS.
Sure.
And then the other 4 or 5 minutes is like, ooh, wait a minute, the hairs of my arm just stood up. And you put little location points, and, there's usually 3 or 4 parts in there. The biggest problem is I'll usually find one extra part, that doesn't really fit the song, typical song structure or whatever. But that's kind of what I do, and I do the same thing with Projected and with Sevendust. I mean, you never know what kind of, song or vibe you're going to come up with. But you come up with cool stuff when you do it that way. It's kind of like going fishing. You throw a line in, and there's some days where they're just not biting. And then there's other days where it's like as fast as you can pull them in. And that's kind of my, point of view when it comes to songwriting. It's like sitting down to write specifically for something is something that I got out of the habit of doing, because I tried to do that for a while. And that's where you really kind of block yourself off. You set the boundaries and the walls up. And some of the best songs are the ones that just come accidentally like that. Just throw your line in, and, maybe today's not the day, but tomorrow could be the day where you just keep reeling them in. So, the difference between the two is minimal, only because that's the process that I do. Now, the difference is once I get it to a point where I'm happy with it, in Projected, it's a lot easier to get something, through the kitchen with all the chefs that we got going on in there. Because in Sevendust, it's like, okay, there's 5 cooks in the kitchen at all times. So, I think the biggest challenge in Sevendust is even like making a record. What kind of a record do we want to make? At this point in time, there's still like not a definitive direction on what we're going to do yet. It's starting to kind of point itself in that direction, but it's still hard to tell because, you've got 3 guys who want to make 3 very different records. And we always find a way to marry that, you know. But with Projected, it's a little bit easier because once you find the path, you just kind of keep going down the path, and then you look around and you're like, all right, they haven't quit yet. So it's still cool, you know.
Did you? I saw, like, I guess it was the first week charts. I mean, you guys were all over Billboard charts for all the different categories. Were you kind of shocked?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even Joe from Rat Pak had called me up. He was like, "Did you guys chart on the first record?" And I just laughed. I was like, "No." You know, it was such a minor little blip on the radar. You know, when you're shipping everything out of the house, and you know, the first record we went through the entire process of, all right, we're gonna write a record, we're gonna make a record, record a record, we're gonna do it on a dime, without a label, without anything, do it out of the house, and it was crazy. I mean, it was just it was chaos because, you know, I mean, you know, some dude would order the CD and the T-shirt for his girlfriend, but he used a credit card for his old billing address, and you know, $14.99 would eat up 2.5 hours of your day, just dealing with where did USPS ship it to, and you know, tracking and this and that and the other thing. And I was like, okay, this is why you have a label. Because it was cool to do it so you could experience it, so that I can be sympathetic to the process, but that has nothing to do with music. You know what I mean? Like, the whole fulfillment part of it was something that I was just like, oh my God. I mean, when we launched that first record, I mean, the whole front room of my house, the dining room, was just ceiling to floor, wall to wall, flat rate boxes, you know, because we didn't know what you're going to do. You know, you kind of throw it out there,
right?
And go, well, hopefully we do a lot. And I mean, I'm thankful that we did it, and I'm thankful that it worked out the way that it did, but it was just on the verge of being almost a little too much. You know, I mean, Lori, my wife, and I looked at each other a couple of times and we were like, wow, this is not what we expected, in a positive way. So, you know, naturally when we said, okay, what are we going to do this second time, we looked at each other, because she was still actually almost in the group of, maybe we can do it all in-house again. And I said, I don't think so. I was like, you know, we can, but I'll never touch a guitar, you know, for the next 3 or 4 months. So, yeah, Rat Pak was a natural fit for us. I mean, we just we had a couple conversations with Joe, and his plan and his model is set up around all these crazy, quirky side projects that may or may, you know, tour. You know, he's not focused on that. He's focused on just the physical selling of the music. And
right.
He does such a good job, you know, with all the fulfillment and the extra stuff that he does, whether it be the stickers or the picks or just, you know, I see these people open up the packages and I'm like, it's like Christmas morning, you know, it's like there's so much
totally
extra content, you know. And for me, that was a big deal. I was like, all right, look, you know, 21 songs is great for people waiting for 5 years, but if they're going to get a guitar laminate and a pick and a bunch of stickers and all this extra stuff, it's like that to me, you know, it was just such a cool part of it, you know. And that was the one thing that we consistently heard when we were talking with people before we signed with Rat Pak. We were like, what do you know about these Rat Pak folks? And they said, look, man, they take care of the fans. They take care of the people who are physically buying the product, you know. And they do such a good job with the whole fulfillment part of it. And but we couldn't be happier. You know, it was perfect. It was like, okay, this makes sense. Because, you know, just based off the numbers and how well it actually did do on the charts, if we tried to do it out of the house, I'd probably be in the middle of a divorce right now. I mean, I don't know that we would have been able to handle it, you know. We're looking at each other going, holy crap, thank God for Rat Pak, you know.
It's also, too, like with the packages like that, it's like buying a Kiss album back in the 70s where you're getting all the little prizes. So, yeah, it's definitely
cool. You get your tattoos, you get all your little pull-out, the posters and all that extra stuff. Oh, yeah. Trust me, Kiss Alive 2, that was like, that might have been it wasn't the first, but it was like the third or the fourth record that I had ever bought. And I didn't even know what it sounded like. I just knew that there was stuff blowing up. There were flames. These guys were wearing costumes and makeup. I had not heard one song, but I had to have Kiss Alive 2. And when I opened it, it was just like I don't even think I put the record on the turntable for a good hour and a half because I was going through everything that was in it, you know. But that's kind of, you know, that's part of why we kind of did the whole thing this way. You know, I mean, we're kind of in a day and an age where, yeah, I mean, the traditional and the convenient thing is to do, you know, a song at a time, maybe an EP. You know, don't give them too much, you know, because people only want to stream it on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever. But I kind of miss the whole, you know, presentation of something that was big, you know, and that Kiss Alive 2 thing, I remember it was a double record, you know, it was huge. This thing was, I mean, it was massive. And that's kind of what we did with this. We said, look, you know, let's not do what everyone expects. You know, just the announcement that there were 21 songs on it, I mean, it was freaking people out because they're just not used to it. We're in a different day and age, you know. And most labels will actually, that's the one thing that I loved about the whole Rat Pak thing was the fact that they were the ones who were pushing for it. I was the guy saying, maybe we should do the smart thing and split it up between, you know, 2 records. And they're like, nope. It's a double record. It should be a double record. And I was like, okay. You know, the artist part of me said, you know, you don't have to convince me too hard because I love doing things like this, you know. And especially being the fact that it took, I mean, unintentionally, but, you know, from 5 years between the first and the second record, I was like, all right, what a better way to really get people to dig in, you know what I mean? And I've told a lot of people, I'm like, hey, man, just spend, you know, the first few months with disc 1 and then get to disc 2, you know, next year or whatever. I mean, not, you know, we're not going to be doing a new one anytime soon, relatively speaking. But yeah, I mean, you know, it is a lot to dive into for sure.
Absolutely. Now, it's a concept album too, correct?
Sir, yep. Which is another thing that was completely unintentional. You know, like I said, that whole fishing thing. You never know what you're going to catch.
Wow. So what is it that ignites the insanity?
Anything. I mean, it could be the external stuff. It could be, you know, you flipping through the news channels. It's probably about 20% external and then 80% internal. Most of it is actually, we did a concept record in Sevendust. It was the Alpha record that we released back in 2007. And this one is basically connected. They are twins. Okay. The voices, or the voice, I should say, in Alpha has manifested into voices. There are multiple voices now. It's actually gotten worse. But this is the revelation where you've kind of accepted that they're there, and you have to figure out how you're going to incorporate them into your life. Because they're not going anywhere. And they're very persistent, and they're very persuasive, and you know, sometimes they lead you down good paths, and sometimes they lead you down bad paths, and you have to be able to kind of figure out how to sort through it all. But yeah, it's basically just you know, the tale of someone who has come to the realization that they are going insane, and they have to accept it and they have to deal with it.
Wow. Sounds deep at times.
Well, what's that?
I said it sounds deep at times.
Yeah, well, it can be. You know, I mean, it's you know, it's not the most uplifting, positive record, but you know, it has its moments. There's moments where things are good, and there's moments where things aren't good at all. But that's just kind of the nature of, you know, if you were going insane and you were losing it, you know, probably what the process would be. Because you realize there's a lot of stuff around you, you know, your family, friends, and things like that, you know, they're all part of it as well. I mean, they can ignite the insanity as well. It could be an external, you know, thing as easily as you know, it could be an internal thing, but most of it is the internal, you know, voices and thoughts and conversations.
Right. Wow. So now I guess you'll just be working on the Sevendust album now rest of the year, or trying to maybe possibly throw some shows in here for either band, or?
No Sevendust shows for sure. We'll start pre-production in October, and we'll be tracking November, mixing December. We had our first sort of full band. Clint's out with Seether right now, so I actually just got back from Atlanta last week. Went up there with Morgan and Vinny and LeJean. just to do a writing session, just to kind of, crack the ice, but get, launch, do whatever. Let's get a direction. Let's figure out where we're going. Got a handful of songs, and now we kind of have a better idea of what everyone's mindset is, And that's always the toughest thing is like, I mean, if you write a ton of stuff, there could be, 16 different directions that you could end up going. But until you actually sit down with the guys in the band, you kind of don't know, because in Projected, it's a little more of a personal thing. I mean, it's not to say that, E-Rock and Benny and Scott don't have input, because they do. It's just I get a lot farther down the road before the input, starts to become abundant. With Sevendust,
right?
I could start and everyone could be looking at me going, no, that's not what we want to do. And you go, okay, wait a minute, where are we going? Let me get on the same page with you and then figure it out. So yeah, I think we have a decent, understanding and idea of where, everyone else's plan is, what kind of a record they want to make. And, the next 3 or 4 months we'll probably be busy getting it all set up and launched for spring. So, somewhere in the midst of that, obviously I'll be looking at open holes and, when's Alter Bridge not on tour and when's Tremonti in the studio. And, hopefully we can pull off a handful of dates.
That'd be cool. Well, hopefully Philly can be on that calendar.
For sure. I'd love to, man.
So, and something else I got to throw out there, too. I'm sure everybody has that song. There's probably like a handful of songs out there that when I listen to, I start to cry. And you have involvement in one of those songs, and it's Angel's Son. And that song, and nice. I can honestly say it's probably been like over the last few years, I can finally like listen to it now without crying through it. I mean, it took probably 20 years, but amazing
cool.
song.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, as heavy as we, usually are, there's always those moments, the Angel songs, the Waits, those personal songs that just kind of get, super attached. It's usually around the loss of someone, I mean, when we lost Lynn, it was a crazy one. I mean,
yeah.
And, it just came out of left field. I remember getting the call and I was like, what? Because it wasn't like he was sick. It wasn't like there was anything that was on the radar. It was just one of those freak, those freak occurrences. And it was like, oh, man. But, yeah, that was probably the first time that we ever had to deal with anything like that, But yeah, super personal, song about him and our relationship and all that good stuff.
And I think too, especially, it's still to this day I can't watch the video because the video with Lynn's mom and all, and amazing, just the way you guys did that. So, all right, well, dude, this has been great, man. It's been great talking to you. I wish you all the luck with everything. Projected, Sevendust. Where should everybody go to get the album? Should we send them right to Rat Pak Records so this way you're not mailing them out of your house?
Yeah. People ask me all the time, like, hey, man, let me just swing by your house. I'm like, I don't have any here. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, we're not doing it like we did on the first one. Like, I want to get a shirt. I'm just going to swing by your house. I'm like, nope. Yeah, I mean, all the physical stuff is going through Rat Pak. It's available digitally everywhere. Google Play, Amazon, Apple Music, iTunes, you name it, it's up there as well. But, yeah, Rat Pak is probably the easiest way.
And how about the band Projected? Is there a website or just a Facebook page? Or?
Yeah, Facebook page and then Rat Pak. We're kind of letting them, kind of run with all of it. We did have a website that we were using a few years back, but we just, decided that the Rat Pak thing and the Facebook page is a little more efficient, because we can get in there. I've got a couple people that, kind of help me out with the page, and it serves a purpose just fine. So, yeah. Facebook and Rat Pak Records.
Awesome. And last thing before I let you go, if I can get you to cut an ID for me. This
Sure.
is John Connolly of Sevendust and Projected, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Hey, this is John Connolly from Sevendust and Projected, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Awesome. John, again, thank you so much, man.
My pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks. Okay.
Yep.
You too.
Bye.